listeners. Thank you for being here on A Neurodivergent Soul. Please remember that you can listen to this podcast on most podcast platforms and also on YouTube. Now, I have recently created a YouTube platform where you can see the visuals from some of my podcasts. And if you're interested in the work that I offer, you can read The Neurodivergent Soul, Where Soul and Story Meet. And it's the book I wrote and had published over these last 3 years, which shares some of my work, some of the understanding of neurodiversity and its connection to spirituality. And today on my podcast, I have Kanan, who is a coach. And Kanan talks about 2E exceptionality. I hadn't actually heard about this before. I've understood emotional intelligence and spiritual intelligence, but she talks about the giftedness that we have that is often unrecognized and not seen in our education systems in school, and how people quite often have very particular gifts, but it goes unrecognized, and throughout their lives, they are very, very hidden with them because we don't necessarily acknowledge these gifts in our education systems. So Kanan helps complex thinkers create real and lasting change in their lives. And so I'm very interested to understand more about this and why it has this particular name. And I hope you really enjoy this podcast and what Kanan has to offer. All of her details will be alongside this podcast. And I'm sure she'd love to hear from you if you have an interest in it. And I certainly would. If you are 2E exceptional, get in touch. I'd like to know more about your story with it and where it comes from and how you've managed it in this rather crazy world that we live in. Enjoy. Kanan, welcome to a Neurodivergent Soul podcast. Delighted to have you here.
It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Great. How are you today?
I'm really good. Yes, life is good. Can't complain.
So tell me, what's your interest in this subject of neurodivergence, and where does it meet you in your life?
I guess it's my whole life. It's my whole, my family, and it explains things in my past, the past generation. Just makes everything make sense and gives me a sense of purpose as well. So I identify as autistic and gifted, so twice
Right.
exceptional. My husband is also twice exceptional. He's ADHD. I have one son who is autistic, ADHD, and gifted. And I have another son who I really categorize as a highly sensitive person rather than any of the others.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Oh, interesting. Wow. I'm fascinated with the gifted side of things. But can we, yeah, how long have you known that you were neurodivergent?
Well, I had my official diagnosis when I was 44.
Okay.
And that was, I'm now 50. So that was just
Yeah.
after my son got diagnosed, really. But, all my life I've known I felt different to everyone else, a bit of an outsider, can fit in, but, just this sense of not quite the same and not being sure what it was. But because being Chinese and growing up in the UK when there was not really many Chinese people in the town that I grew up in, you can obviously assume, oh, it's probably that, I'm just different culture.
Yeah.
But yeah, there was more to it. Later on, I was to realize. Yeah.
Yeah. What made you realize, do you think? What was the significant moment for you?
It was definitely going through this process of trying to figure out why is my son struggling at home? Why are we having like these challenges parenting him when he was doing absolutely fine at school, and they said he was a lovely boy at school, and it was a bit like this Jekyll and Hyde thing, we'd be thinking, oh, it feels like they're talking about a different child.
Interesting.
And I definitely put that down to the 2E now.
Yeah.
So, he's smart enough to do what's expected of him. He's smart enough to keep up academically and even like excel. But then when he comes home, the autistic and ADHD side was very worn out, and obviously home is safe space, and so we get the kind of leftovers of his energy or his dysregulation where
Yeah.
his needs hadn't been met throughout the day. So that
Yeah.
to me explained
Yeah. Yeah.
Jekyll and Hyde thing.
Yeah. I had exactly the same experience with one of my daughters. Yeah.
Mm.
Absolutely fine in school,
Yeah,
you know, very, very good student. And then coming home and the meltdowns would happen and all of that. And I think
yeah.
I was very much like that at school, as you know, coming home from school as well. So, and yeah, what led you then to have your diagnosis?
So while that was happening, I was not able to get anyone to kind of confirm. At the beginning, I thought he had ADHD, and that was all
Mm,
I thought it was because he's very physically active. He was
mm,
climbing all over the place. So I was convinced it was ADHD, and obviously waiting through the NHS and doing all the paperwork, all that stuff took time, and no one seemed to believe me. So
mm,
I knew as a mum instinctively. So I went off to sort of figure out what can I do to help help him myself instead of waiting for other people to help us. So I went off and did my training as a yoga and mindfulness teacher for kids with
mm,
autism and ADHD.
right.
Um, and I also became a professional declutterer and organizer. So I was
Mm,
going into adults' houses and, getting to know them quite intimately in terms of their mental and emotional health and, their physical space. And what I realized was this connection between, okay, so this is what happens for children. And so I was understanding kind of the physiological and emotional, mental things that happen for children. And then I realized in the houses that I was in, these were like probably undiagnosed neurodivergent adults that were
mm,
not getting support. They were very functional, they were successful, but their homes showed something different. So it was a bit like the Jekyll and Hyde thing I was describing in my own house.
mm,
So I just made this connection, and then when we were doing various assessments for my son, the questions I was like, and I did a lot of reading. I read a lot to try and figure out, is it ADHD, is it something else, is it autism?
right.
Giddiness wasn't on the scene at that point. But as I was reading things, I was recognizing things that I'd experienced in my childhood and throughout my life, and I just thought, well, this explains a lot, I think.
Yeah.
And because I was working with adults that were what I believe neurodivergent but undiagnosed, I came to the conclusion that, well, this must be my purpose then. I've been given all these challenges for a reason, these experiences for a reason. And my purpose is to help adults because they're largely going unrecognized. And, kids do get more help than adults. Um, so I was
Yeah.
like, well, they deserve just as much help. That it felt like there was a lost generation, who had just
Mm,
kind of got forgotten, and yet they're still suffering. So I just thought, that's what my purpose is. It's to help neurodivergent adults to kind of heal and become empowered and live a really happy, meaningful life by understanding themselves. Um, so I started thinking this, and then I realized people probably wouldn't believe that I was autistic because basically, generally, people, would be like quite surprised if I mentioned it. And so, really, more for other people's uh, validation, I guess, I went and got the assessment
right.
done.
Right.
And it was interesting because the lady that did it, she said to me, yes, you are. But if you'd gone through the NHS, you probably would have been told no.
Oh,
because of this. Not people, not sorry, the clinicians not necessarily being fully up to date on like the female presentation of
oh
all.
right, yeah, yeah.
So yeah, that was again, even that was interesting, becoming aware of that, and that a lot of females, even though they might suspect they are, to think that they would go and get an assessment and then be told no, and then what, what, they're still lost and confused. So that's why I got the diagnosis, knowing that that would give other people who didn't quite believe, like this
Mm,
stamp, but also I didn't want to become kind of like a clinician diagnosing people, because I knew there was swathes of people that didn't necessarily want a diagnosis, but they wanted to know, is what I'm suspecting,
mm,
is it real? They wanted, affirmation and validation. So
mm,
that's really why I chose to do coaching instead of a more
right,
clinical approach.
yeah.
Um, yeah,
What do you know of the difference with women and how different we might present?
I would say the biggest thing is like our ability to mask is very high. So
Mm,
I'm just being very like general here. Obviously, it's not.
okay, yeah, but it's interesting.
Yeah, I think because women are more socially motivated, like biologically, to be uh,
Mm,
wanting to connect with others, and because of that, and because we can kind of watch and learn
mm,
what the etiquette is, what the social norms are, we can put a lot of energy into doing it and be successful at masking,
right,
or being a chameleon and fitting in. And there's always I think there's always being a good girl, a nice girl.
yeah,
So sometimes you seem shy or quiet, it's just, oh, you're just shy and quiet, rather
sure,
than maybe recognizing that on the inside it might be a very different experience. For me, I was very shy as a child, but on the inside there's loads of stuff going on, a lot of anxiety, a lot of thinking. Um, so I guess it's like more internalized, and we'll put a lot of effort in, use a lot of energy to compensate and to fit in and do what's expected, which is why that you get to a certain stage in your life where you've been doing it so long, you don't actually realize you're masking.
yeah, yeah,
And until something like maybe the perimenopause comes along, or some life crisis, and then you get burnt out, and then everything, you can no longer compensate and mask.
right, right,
So there's that. Yeah, I think that's probably our ability to seem socially normal, like, or
yeah,
neurotypical.
yeah. So
Um,
when would you say that maybe you don't, maybe you do recognize when you might have started to mask as a child even, like when would things have become different for you, or do you have any awareness of what it was like as a child to be masking, or who would you be if you hadn't been masking? I like that question.
oh yeah, oh, many questions there. I'm trying to think of, like, is there a point where I remember I wasn't being me? It's
Mm,
quite difficult to pinpoint.
yeah, it is.
I definitely remember, like, in my I guess like sort of toddler years, younger years, being very joyful and carefree. So
Yeah,
maybe it was when I started school. I'm thinking, I'm not quite sure, but definitely I get a sense it is like maybe once you go into this environment where there's lots of expectations and demands,
yeah,
and having this huge fear and anxiety of doing things wrong, and so
yeah.
being hyper vigilant and
Mm,
trying to anticipate what's expected, and delivering what's expected. I feel like it probably started with school.
right.
There's so many people there as well, like your peers and the
Yeah,
teachers.
yeah, yeah.
So there's a lot to navigate.
Yeah, there absolutely is. And aren't those little girls kind of used to those let's pretend games? That kind of
Mm.
thing. It's like, oh, we're pretending. And so that would maybe become part of our personality. Let's pretend that I am like. you
Yeah,
or like my friends or
definitely, definitely.
that's
Yeah, I'm very aware, like the friends I had, I would say they're generally very sociable.
right.
I don't know if that was like a subconscious selection, if you know what I mean,
Mm,
where, oh, this feels safe.
okay.
Um, they were always kind. I always, yeah,
Yeah.
these are the lovely people in that I could see, and they always took me under their wing, very protective and caring. And also I could, I was able to just listen and observe, and they didn't judge me. So that's the bit where the, oh, quiet and shy comes in. But
Yeah.
I was actually very actively kind of paying attention, like, oh, what's going on?
Right.
And picking up, I think, things that you can say and the way conversations go, all that kind of stuff. So I
Yeah.
think maybe subconsciously I've always been drawn to, yeah, people who are good at socializing. Even my husband is very good with people. He's
Yeah.
very charming. So yeah,
Do you hide behind that, do you think? Do you think that's part of it?
I think it means you can if you
Yeah.
don't feel up to socializing. So it's quite
Yeah.
nice, you have a bit of a buffer, a
Yeah.
protector.
And how did you get on with the education system?
I was fine because I was actually I do like learning, uh,
Right.
and I think that this is where the gifted part comes in. I didn't really
Yeah.
struggle that much at school. It was
Right.
maybe some people could see me as a bit of a nerd or a geek, what you call it now. So and also I think coming from a Asian culture,
Mm.
we are encouraged to study and not kind of
Yeah.
go and play and socialize. So
Yeah.
for me, it's quite normal just to study instead of going out and playing, and meeting
What did you
friends.
study the most? What was your special interest?
Um, I think I really enjoyed the arts, like
Okay.
art, design, and at that point also even English.
Mm.
I
Mm.
think it was a way it was all about expression and communication. Not necessarily that I was expressing and communicating as I maybe wanted to, but just the fact that, oh, here's a medium that you can communicate with that isn't just speaking.
Yeah.
But I've always loved design and art, and I've got an appreciation of beauty. Uh,
Mm.
I think that does tie in with partially with the autism, but also the giftedness, because if you have like creative and sensorial giftedness, seeing beauty has such a deep impact on your nervous system and
Mm.
your soul. So that's how it feels for me anyway.
Yes. Yeah. So tell us about the gift, your giftedness.
Um, Giftedness kind of like hit me, I think, a few years after I found out about autism and ADHD, like the concept of all those things, and I was working with people. So when I became a declutterer, I was in an association called the Association of Professional um, Declutterers and Organisers in the UK. And through that, I met, I started sort of networking and meeting people on LinkedIn. And I met this lady who had a podcast, and it was called Unleash Mondays. And
Okay.
I can't even remember how it happened, but she just asked me if I wanted to go on the podcast. And I said, like I said to you, I said, yeah, I love meeting people and having a chat. I really
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
I love one-to-ones and just getting to know people deeply. And so I went on, and I think it didn't quite hit me that it was a gifted and twice exceptional podcast. But she
Okay.
was asking me on because obviously she must have thought I was gifted. So I don't think it quite landed, till maybe a little bit later. Um, so then I just went down this rabbit hole of what's giftedness.
Mm.
And yeah, there was a lot to learn, because to me, I'd never got identified as, gifted and talented at school. I knew I was good at academically,
Mm.
but I never, to me, the only time I touched upon the terms gifted and talented was when one of my um, son's friends, I was friendly with their mum, and she said, "Oh, my son's been identified as gifted and talented." I said, "Oh, wow, that's amazing. What does that mean then at school? What's different?" And she said, "Well, the way." they don't really do much different, to be honest. It's kind of limited what they can offer. So, it didn't seem like anything big in that
Mm.
sense. Um, but then when I started really just reading about it and listening to podcasts, it was like a piece of the puzzle clicked.
Mm.
And mainly it was I did a lot of reading on the Intergifted website. There's a lot of there's a lot of blogs on there and content that you can read. And I just recognized myself.
Okay.
And it was like, ah, this explains so much. Again, on top of the autism explaining a lot.
Okay.
And then then I got really excited and I could see like my the giftedness in my family. And so I then joined one of Intergifted's training courses, which was for coaches. It was Gifted Psychology 101 for coaches, and it was amazing. So I picked up so much information from that course, and it gave me a lot of confidence that, again, yes, I am meant to be helping neurodivergent people because gifted people are also neurodivergent. And twice exceptional people are even more complex because they have, these layers. They've got the giftedness, they've got either ADHD, autism. Obviously there are other neurodivergences, but that's kind of my specialty because that's what I live with, I have the lived experience with, and also trauma. So, this complexity and I guess the universe helped bring certain people into my life in terms of clients and friends,
Mm.
connections. And I just found that I made really deep connections with these people. And so it was an affirmation that, yeah, this is my tribe. This
Yeah.
is who I can easily resonate and communicate with. Um, and because I was in I'd done a lot of healing work over the years, and I could see that a lot of them were still lost. And I
Mm.
think the luxury I had was I've been a stay-at-home mum for like maybe 10 years. And so I had a lot of time to do all this reading and, kind of dipping my toes into what do I want to do next for a career when the kids leave home. And so
Mm.
it was all guiding me towards gifted people because when we connected, when we met, we had this immediate mutual understanding.
Mm.
Whereas with other people, I always had this sense of kind of holding back because I knew they wouldn't understand me, and I almost didn't want to bother. I didn't want to waste that energy either trying to make myself be understood or trying to connect and meet them, if that makes sense. Because I am a good listener, so I find people tell me a lot of things about themselves, but then you end up becoming um, kind of like drained of energy, because active
Yeah.
listening is quite intense sometimes.
Mm. Mm. So where does the talent come in? What would you say is the talent in all of this?
Um, so I guess mm, the mainstream idea of gifted and talented is that
Yeah.
um, you have high IQ. So that's why in school you get identified because you're probably very quick at picking things up. You're ahead of your peers. Um, you might be quite mature in the way you think and
Mhm.
even get on better with adults than kids your own age.
Yeah.
Um, but it's not. So what I learned through Into Gifted, who take a holistic approach, is that. Sorry, I feel like I'm going to sneeze. um, yeah, through Into Gifted, the holistic idea of giftedness is that it's not just IQ. It's not just like your cognitive intelligence. There can be emotional intelligence. There
Right.
can be creative intelligence, physical intelligence, sensorial intelligence, and existential intelligence. And that just made a lot more sense to me than it's just high IQ because you meet people who are really complex and you can tell they're very bright, but maybe they're not very good at school, academically. So
Mm.
that to me, it can't just be the IQ thing.
Right.
There are different forms of intelligence. So personally, for me, I have high emotional intelligence and high existential intelligence.
Mm.
Because of those two things, um, I kind of feel driven to help people, and I don't. It's almost like I can feel their pain, and I know I have the intelligence to help them end their pain, their suffering.
Okay.
Um, so the existential intelligence part, for me ties in with like I've been practicing yoga for maybe 30 years. So yogic philosophy, Buddhist philosophy, and just having a very open mind, um, loving things like about the metaphysical, shamanism, all that stuff for me falls into that existential intelligence and having
Mm.
this innate ability to pick it up and very quickly kind of get it. It's like integrated wisdom. So I always say that I feel like my intuition is one of my gifts. I don't have to go off and necessarily learn at length about something
Right.
if it's like one of those things that I love. It's it's just it feels obvious. Whereas I know if it's something that's not interesting, then maybe this is where the autism bit ties in. If it's not interesting, it's such a struggle to even look at it. So tech,
Yeah.
for example, I'm like completely overwhelmed by it, even if I have to, I know it's something on the phone, something simple. The rest of my family are very technical. They are really good at computer science, that sort of thing. Um, so I'm like the odd one out. But when it comes to emotional stuff and
Yeah.
existential stuff, I'm there. I will swim in that sea for ages. So I can use that to help my clients. And the thing about giftedness is it's not just so maybe you can pick it up quick, but it's also the depth that you can go into it at, and also the breadth of
Mm.
what you can hold. And I think that's how I experience giftedness. It's this intensity, this depth, this breadth.
Yeah.
So it isn't necessarily just what do you know
Yeah.
intellectually.
Yeah. That's a lovely description. And do you think that's always been there since you were a child? Do you think you grew up with that? You had a sense of it?
Yeah, I can see it
Yeah.
now. I don't think at the time I recognized it. I probably just thought, oh,
Mm.
I'm a bit weird and different. Um, yeah, I always felt kind of not necessarily guilty, but this sort of empathy for
Mm.
people who'd been treated bad, cruelty to
Mm.
animals,
Yeah.
just people's pain and suffering and not understanding why
Mm.
that was happening and why is the world like that.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
And my I also remember as a child the I used to love things like Arthur C. Clarke. Don't know if you know who he is. He wrote a book about I can't remember the name of the book, but it was about things like paranormal, ghosts, voodoo, so things like shrunken heads and people getting cursed. And that was quite a young age I was into that. It was quite a big, thick, heavy book. I remember loving it and kind of scaring myself because like, what is all this strange stuff that you can't see, but
Yeah.
it seems to be doing something because people are getting affected by it. So I think that was probably like the first sign. And I used to watch a lot of like horror movies as well as a child, which I don't know why I did it because I hate horror movies. I scare myself. But I used to watch a lot of stuff about vampires.
Yeah.
Um, like the sort of Peter Cushing and Christopher Lee sort of era. And in the night time, we would watch as a family that we would watch these Chinese programs, and there would also be kind of like vampires and paranormal stuff in it. So to me, it's really exciting and
Mm.
interesting. It wasn't stuff that my friends were talking about there, you know what I mean? But it was this part of me that I recognized and kind of needed to be fed, right? That
Right.
interest.
Yeah.
Um,
Beyond the normal, it seems that.
yes,
Yeah.
yeah. I'm always interested in the stuff that is not mainstream, boring, or normal, it seems. I think that's been the theme throughout life.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So it's like what you're talking about, that expansion of consciousness almost of, well, what's out there, but then also being deeply affected by it. It's like you say about the
Yeah,
pain in the world, the pain of people, animals, cruelty, all of that. And that I know that for myself, and that need to retreat almost and to isolate oneself because the world is such a painful place to live in. You
exactly. Yeah,
find that.
definitely. Like as a child, I was very happy on my in my own company.
Yeah.
So even though, so my dad passed away when I was 8, and my mum became like a single mother. She had to go and work. So me and my brother were often, in each other's company.
Yeah.
In the house, be quiet. But I really loved it. You know, I could
Good.
just draw, I could read.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed it. And then I guess as you get older, there's just more demands and expectations and less space for that alone time
Mm.
and
Mm.
just quiet, being quiet still. And so now I appreciate it at a different level
Yeah.
because the world has got busier, hasn't it? It's got kind of
Sure.
24/7.
Yeah.
And then you become a parent again, your time gets diverted, your attention and energy gets diverted. So now I almost crave and deeply appreciate that quiet time.
Yes.
This year, I've booked my first silent retreat, which I've been wanting to do a silent retreat for years, but not thinking, how am I going to make that happen? Because I knew if I did it locally, chances are I'll come home and there would be more conversations like about dinner or whatever, something going on. But to actually take myself away somewhere where it is a complete retreat, I cannot wait.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, that sounds really beautiful. And what a gift to yourself to be able to experience that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So you became a coach. Had you had a career before that of any other description, or were you parenting or?
Yeah. So before my kids, I'd been in uh, kind of fashion and retail in the head office
Okay.
in the buying department. So it was, yeah, really looking at, what do we want to buy and put in store and how to make money. I didn't go in it for making the money. I went into it because of my creative side. I
Right.
loved the idea of creating these beautiful experiences. People would go into a space and, this is what shopping gave me. It was almost going to another world and having this sensorial pleasure
Yeah. Yeah.
because I would spend hours just feeling
Oh gosh. Yeah.
fabrics, taking in the colors, and the music, the whole environment, the energy. And so to be able to create that and therefore hopefully, make a living out of it, that's where my logical brain went. I was like, oh, I can, sell clothes and it'll make money and everything's great. And then I didn't realize that it was quite cutthroat in that industry and it was
Yeah.
about negotiating and, I think working my way up from the bottom because it is a highly desirable industry, I think, for a lot of people to go into. It was hard work, and by the end of it, when I was pregnant and I knew I was going on maternity leave. It was kind of like, oh, I've got an escape route now, you know, um, because by that point I'd felt that I'd become, again, not just masking, but I'd become like this chameleon where I'd had to be something that I'm not. I was not being authentic, but I was
Right.
doing what I had to do to, you know, do what I was my role.
Mm.
So
Mm.
things like managing people, that's not how I operate normally. I'm very much a collaborator.
Right.
So that's my preference.
Okay.
And then, like I say, when it comes to negotiating and you have to. I used to say, "Oh, I feel like I have to be a bitch," and that's
Mm.
so not me. That goes against
Mm.
this like loving, kind heart that was underneath it all. But yeah, I had to do it, you know. So there's just I felt like I was not being true to myself. But
Right.
I think like a lot of us, it's like, oh, how do I get out of this? Because you're already in it by that point. You've invested so much of your life to
Yeah.
it. You have the experience. What else can you do? And then, like I say, I became a stay-at-home mum, and that was I was thinking, you know, that'd be great. I love kids. Um, I can't think of anything better. And that's when, you know, the reality hit of this parenting log is not what I thought it was going to be like. And it looked even harder than how everyone else was coping. So I
Yeah.
was like, there's something here that I'm not understanding. That's when I started going down that rabbit hole.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah. It's so often the way, isn't it? Our children are our greatest teachers in that area. They lead us down that path because
100%.
it's such an
100%.
obvious one. And I just have to say, I love that you talked about going to the shops and the sensory experiences that you have because I go into a shop to touch things. I
Yes.
think
Yes.
I go feeling all the different materials. That's my if I, in order to cope, I think possibly with going shopping, I have to touch things and
Yeah.
find out what are the textures like. I'm talking about
Oh,
clothing here and
yeah. Yeah.
or fabrics for home or whatever it is. And but
Candles and you know essences.
yes, yeah, I'm not so hot on the smells because I really
Mm.
find I don't like perfumes or
No, no.
any kind of oils or those strong smells. Gosh,
Yeah.
if I have to walk through an airport, I'm just like,
Oh, it's
hang
awful,
on a
isn't
minute,
it?
it's the
Awful.
worst experience. Yeah, I can't bear that. But yeah, clothing like that, the touch and actually going, oh no, can't touch that.
Mhm.
It's so
Oh,
instant on the
polyester.
fingertips.
Polyester. There's so much
Oh no.
polyester out there, isn't there? That, and I just kind of recoil when I touch.
Yeah.
But I'm looking at what you're wearing. Actually, it looks like a lovely cotton
Oh,
knitted.
cotton.
I can
Yeah,
feel the comfort
soft.
just looking at it.
Everything has to be soft and
Yeah,
quite loose. I don't wear
yeah,
tight things. I like loose, soft,
yeah.
very comfortable with the skin.
Cozy.
And
Yeah,
it's quite hard sometimes to find those things.
I agree.
Yeah, yeah. But to go through a shop and to be able to touch, and if I see something soft and furry, even or toys, or
Oh, yeah,
my hands just go towards it.
yeah,
My husband laughs at me because I'm such a feely type, and yes, I'm not a very feely type when it comes to people.
yes,
But
yeah.
yeah, yeah, that's an interesting one. So yeah, tell me more about your work now and how do you want to develop it or do you feel quite comfortable in how it is?
Oh, I feel like the last couple of years I've been experimenting because I guess like any journey, you're always trying to refine the path. Like at the beginning, like I said, I was trying different things, right? What am I meant to be
Yeah,
doing? I have absolutely no idea. Never even heard of what a coach was. Did absolutely no idea.
yeah.
And then someone asked me to be like a kind of like guinea pig coachee. I was like, yeah. And then I thought, this is amazing. I want to do this. I think a lot of people do that, right? Um, so over the years, I've tried so many different things because and this is part of giftedness as well. You know, I'm curious, and I am willing to try everything and anything if it will give
Mm,
me the answer that I'm looking for. Um, so I did do my coach training, but I think even that kids yoga training and things like yogic philosophy, they're like teaching you how to live life
mm,
fully and in an embodied way instead of just from your mind.
right.
So I feel like the coaching it's a term, but it doesn't explain everything that I do. But I feel
Mm,
like I've got to give it something. I've kind of ended up saying I'm a coach, mentor, healer, but even then, you know, it's hard to find the right word,
mm,
and
mm,
it'll suffice kind of thing. So
yeah.
I try to blend all that uh, philosophy on how to live a good life, along with the psychoeducation side about autism, ADHD, and giftedness, all the
Yeah.
psychology, and the main thing I've realized is that I just want people to be happy. And
Yeah.
one of the big things that makes people unhappy is their relationships, whether
Okay.
it's with like a partner or their children or their parents or the relationship they have with themselves. So like how they're talking to themselves or these other people or how they're interacting. And I think this is where the autistic part comes in, is that I started noticing patterns in my own experience and in the clients I was working with. And so I started seeing that it's almost like, oh, well, it's a recipe. If they're doing this, if I'm doing this, then this is what I get. And so that means it's it's simple to change it.
Mm,
So
mm,
from a high level, it seems really simple. But when like when you try and implement it, obviously it's never never that simple because we have so much conditioning and fear.
right.
And we're often acting from a place of like safe, want to keep ourselves safe, right?
Right.
So I've gone down paths of like looking at the nervous system. Again, this ties to yoga, but also people like Richard Schwartz, Gabor Mate, um, learning about polyvagal theory, compassionate inquiry, internal family systems. Oh, and Dr. Levine, I do a lot of his trainings, and it just all sucking all of this in and I can see from a really high level that most of us are just operating from a really dysregulated nervous system, like a traumatized nervous system, and that it's showing up in our relationships.
Mm, mm,
So if we can help people to have that secure, regulated nervous system, their relationships almost magically improve. Right.
right. Right. Right. Nice. Nice. And so you're continuing to learn. Your love of learning is
Yeah.
feeding into a lot of the work you do today.
Yes. So it's mostly gathering more and more tools because I just
Mm,
find them interesting.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
the
Sure.
spiritual tools are great, and
Yeah.
it means I get to experience it for myself
Yeah.
before I
Of course.
potentially want to share it with
Of
someone.
course.
So,
Yeah.
for example, I'm going to do Reiki drum journeying training this month. So I'm really excited about that. I'm not Reiki attuned, but I'm Rahani attuned. So that's angelic healing.
Okay.
Um, but I asked the lady, I said, I'm not Reiki tuned, is it okay? And she knows me and she said, well, you've got your Rahani energy healing, so I'm sure it'll be fine. So I'm great, great. Maybe I'll come up with something that combines something that doesn't exist. That's fun. So I love combining all these tools. And when I work with people, it means it's never boring because I can mix and match and we
Mm,
co-create in the moment. So it's always dynamic and interesting. So I
right.
think I've realized, as I say, over time, I've been filtering to who is like my ideal fit, who am I here to best serve.
Right.
And I can see I'm not for those who are really at the beginning of their um, journey of,
Right.
maybe I've just got diagnosed and I've done no inner work. I've not seen any therapists or counselors. So there's I've realized like we're not a good match. There's so many people that can serve them, but the ones that I love to serve, they've been going to therapy for decades. And they're like, why is nothing changed? I've been doing
Mm,
Reiki, I've been doing EMDR, whatever it is. And I consider myself like a detective
mm,
problem solver. So if they bring me something complicated, I'm like, great, I get really excited.
right.
And
Yeah.
that's what makes me feel alive and
Yeah.
how I can be my best self. Yeah.
Yeah, I can relate to that. Absolutely. Yeah, and we're not for everybody. That's really important to recognize, isn't it? When we think we can serve everybody and the whole community and we've got the answers for everybody, then that doesn't work at all. It's like really knowing what your niche is and who
Yeah.
you're here to serve, isn't it? So it's really important to acknowledge that and honor that.
Mm.
Yeah, beautiful. Wow, it's really great to hear your story, Kanan. And you know, what would you have some words for our audience in particular, particularly neurodivergent folk, maybe newly diagnosed, or going through a process that they've been with for many years? What would you say to them? What would your personal message be?
Oh, it's difficult to pick one, isn't it? Um, I feel like it's about trusting yourself and your gut instinct
Mm,
because we have so much the outside world invalidating, denying, gaslighting what we're feeling. And I always say, if you're feeling it, then it's real. No one can question
mm,
how
mm,
you're feeling. So trust your
mm.
feelings. And yeah, if you're seeking help, I would say try to work with a neurodivergent um, professional, whether it's a therapist, counselor, coach, whatever,
Yeah.
because it's so much safer and quicker, I think, the work.
Mm, mm,
Because otherwise, if you go, I'm not saying that there are no neurotypical professionals that are very, like, really good at what they do, but I hear so many times of people saying that they've been kind of traumatized by therapists or coaches. And often, when you dig into it, it's because they were not understood by that person.
yeah.
So, yeah, that would be my tip, I would say.
Right. That's a great one. I think that's really important. People with shared experience.
Mm.
Yeah, with those who we need to have help us. Absolutely.
And yeah, think outside the box like we do, it's
Yeah,
don't necessarily follow the mainstream.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, yeah, you're absolutely right there. Thank you, Kanan. It's been an absolute delight and loved having you on the show. And yeah, we'll be posting your information alongside this podcast. So if people want to contact you, they'll know where to find you.
Thank you, Caroline. It's been an absolute joy.